Hi, everyone. Is this working? All right. Thank you for joining us. It's really nice to have you all here. And also, I understand we have online participants, so hello to everyone online. It's a pleasure to chair this session. Let me quickly introduce myself. I'm Darshini Ravindranath. I'm senior researcher at the International Water Management Institute, and lucky enough to be a part of this wonderful program, Just Transitions for Water Security, that we're speaking about today. The JTWS, as we call it for short, is an important initiative. It brings together complementary strategies to drive policy reform, support inclusive governance, and unlock innovative finance. We build on partnerships. You'll hear from all of our partners shortly, but we've got a wonderful set of partners who all work together to improve the capabilities of local and national policymakers to build climate resilience and water security. We aim to strengthen institutions, technical capacity and governance, build the market conditions and incentives for investment in water, and ensure delivery of sustainable water stewardship. I know that sounds like a lot of words, but trust me, they all work, and it works really well together. This program also operates in multiple countries across the global south, and it's a 5-year program. I think it's a relatively new program. It's a young program, but it's very matured in its thinking. I'm a little bit biased, but I think it truly has transformational potential. I don't want to take too much of your time, and I don't want to bury the lead, so I'm going to quickly, what am I doing? All right. Go over the agenda for today. So we're going to be starting with the wonderful Andrew Roby from UK government. And then we will have 4 interventions from different initiatives which are part of the JTWS program. And then we will have group discussions similar to a lot of the sessions that we've had so far, the World Cafe style. So we really look forward to having all of you contribute to those. And then we'll report back and then we'll finish. So yes, hopefully all very efficiently. So I'm now going to, sorry, we do have one more thing that I forgot, which is the Mentimeter. We'd be very grateful. We want to get a sense of who's in the room. So we'll be very grateful if you can pull up your phones, your laptops, whatever, and fill up a couple of questions that are going to be coming up shortly. If you can let me know if I need to change the slide, or is this, it's good? Okay, thank you. All right. It's got some interesting results coming through. Got good representation from civil society, from government, business, finance, academia. All right, I think we're done. Can I move over? Next, all right. From which country are you based? Nice. Laos, the Netherlands, Germany, Belgium. Very exciting. All right. Okay, thank you very much for that. I'm now going to hand over to Andy Roby. He is Senior Water Security Advisor at the UK Government's Foreign, Commonwealth and Development Office. Andy brings decades of experience in the international development sector, water security and tropical forestry. I'm going to hand over. Thank you.
Thanks, Darshini. It's great to be here. Senior Water Security Advisor says it all. Feeling very tired at this stage of the week. I hope you have energy. There will be lots of great stuff going on today, so I hope to bring a little bit more energy to the room. As Darshini said, I am a water advisor in the Foreign Office, and I am responsible for this program in the sense of managing to find the money put together a convincing enough business case so that my seniors and the Director General signed it off. So it is a significant programme, yes, and it is going to be a very interesting journey. We've been doing it for about a year, but I want to give a little bit of the backdrop to this because this is a World Water Week baby. But it was born in a bar, not in a room like this. Many of my best ideas, and I think this is, come in bars, but also through interaction with folk like you. I do encourage you to come drinking with me one day. It's very sad to be on your own. And, but it was followed by many conversations, workshops, papers and funding. And thanks to all those that provided those inputs and are still part of this. That birth moment 6 years ago was also the result of deep frustration, the frustration that I picked up in the conversations I had off stage, that nobody really seemed to be taking the water crisis seriously. Everything seemed to be okay. We were doing a good job. We were patting each other on the back. And so this word transformation came into my thinking, and I found others with similar sets of frustrations and concerns. And so what is transformation? That is systems change. It is tackling this global issue through systems change. And that means moving from one state to another. It means a more secure world. It really means, though, changing the rules of the game, the way society and economies work, not pockets of unsustainable excellence. And I think as climate change deepens, we can expect more and more of countries to start to take water seriously. Because when it becomes a priority for a country, the brave decisions necessary to fix the problem will be made. And few countries have really done more than just pay lip service to water security. The UN Water Conference 3 years ago was a great example of that. How many times did a statement start with water is life and climate is water, and then nothing to follow it up? But there are examples emerging. I encourage you to look at Singapore. You could say it's a unique island state issue, but actually they took their water security seriously from about 1965 when they got independence from the Malay Federation, because it was a national security issue. I'd like to think that in the UK we're starting to take water seriously. I can happily regale you with that story, the poo in the rivers story, but there's not time for that. But just to say that there are no quick fixes and easy wins, but there are many meaningful and impactful things that we can do. We heard this morning about some interesting new litigation against a corporate for causing a flood in a village by protecting their own assets. These are avenues we haven't really explored in the water sector. So is that a route to change? And it's very much this change that's at the heart of our theory of change as it stands today. Not fixing problems like pipes, but securing a future which is green and resilient, which works with nature. And we do need to do what is right for the environment, but also for people and prosperity. Water for growth is a really important element that's emerging in our debate with central banks, with economists who are beginning to understand the materiality of water to economic growth. And the same applies to people and their local needs, and hence the just bit of this programme. And how do we attract the scale of capital if we can't get the returns from water to encourage investors to take a risk on water? These are things that we struggle with in the water sector. It's a public good, isn't it? Therefore, it's not something that private sector, it isn't something the private sector should be engaged with. Is that right? Is that the right model? Well, we'll hear about the Resilient Water Accelerator today and the work that they're doing. So, it's not about quick fixes, and this probably is the biggest challenge facing the rest of this century, and we can expect to have much more concern expressed by it. But I want to quickly lay out the three elements of this program, and then we can get on to hear from the real experts in the room, not people like me. And the first one is the Water Resilience Tracker, which is our policy change bit of the program. And you will hear from Idris about the work that we're doing in Nepal and Brazil and elsewhere. It's about integrating water across ministries and pushing it up the agenda, but also pushing it down to where it matters at catchments and local government level. We also need to recognise that it is usually the case that the biggest water users and biggest investors are not in what we might describe as the water sector. They're outside of this room, of the water people in this room, but are the manufacturers, the food processors that underpin the global trade and also, by the way, provide food security. So you'll be hearing from Fair Water Footprints about how they are broadening, widening the conversation and connecting up communities to those global supply chains and international trade so that we can again shift systems, shift the way business operates. And once you've got the policies in place and the governance in place, perhaps then we can expect some more investment. So the Resilient Water Accelerator is looking at how to draw that investment in from the private sector, but using the public sector to handle some of the risks that you can't expect private investors to take on. Anyway, you've heard enough from me. This program, though, was developed by an amazing group of visionary and multidisciplinary change makers. All I did was define the outcomes and the impact and found some money. All that stuff in the middle of the theory of change came from the people in this room. And they designed this baby, not in a test tube in a lab, but in the real world. So it is much better that you hear from them. And just to underline the need for this multifaceted approach and to encourage you to engage in it if you're not already engaged. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andy. I think all of us partners appreciate the energy, commitment, and sense of urgency that FCDO bring. So thanks again. I just want to quickly also bring this up. This is the theory of change for the JTWS program and speaks very much to what Andy was saying. I think what I want to draw your attention to here is the four spheres of influence we're looking at, which is policymakers, public sector actors, corporations and financial institutions, investors and project developers, and civil society and citizens. And this will connect really well with our four speakers that are going to come up one by one. So I want to start off with that. So we're going to start with Idris Malyar. He is the project director for the Water Resilience Tracker. Idris has experience in water management, climate resilience, and has held roles in the Afghanistan government and the World Bank.
Thank you, Darshini. May I have the... Hello, everyone. A very good day to all of you. I'll be presenting the Water Resilience Tracker. It is, as Andy said, it's one of the three pillars of the Just Transition for Water Security. And I will leave the two other programs. They have their own presentations, but that's how the bigger structure looks like. Tracker is one of those three programs here. Before I go to the detail of it, I was thinking that how to put it, that why Tracker is needed at the country level. Being someone who worked with the government and leading a sector or a department, whether you are sitting in Ministry of Water or Ministry of Agriculture, or you are sitting somewhere in leading climate change and environment agenda, you are thinking that there are so many things running around you, but how the bigger picture looks like, and where are we as a country, and where are we, even if you think at that transboundary level as a region, that what's happening around me. And then you will be thinking like, I wish I had a tool to tell me where I'm standing with my NAP goals, where I'm with my NDC, and where I am with my water policy or agriculture plans, or overall how the whole things that we are working at different level, how they are all connecting. So Tracker is a tool that brings all of that in one space, in one page. And for that, our assumption is, first of all, that if climate action is to be successful and to meet that climate agenda, we need to recognize the role of water. All of these things that I was talking about, they're all connected to a one thread that's water in between them. So that's the assumption of it. That's how this project was started to build. It is a diagnostic tool. It comes with a questionnaire of 120 questions and a rich guiding document. For each question, we have at least a page or 2 or 3 discussing that what does it mean and what are the good examples around those questions. So it is developed in 4 stages or 4 chapters. First, we look at the water at the national climate plans, whether that's NDC, NAP, or any other documents that we look at. So we see whether water is referred and highlighted as a risk and how you deal with that. Whether water is looked at as a resource or as a sector. So that looking at those national level documents, NDCs, NAPs, water plans, agriculture plans, all of that. That's the first section what we do. The second thing is that we look at the institutional setup and arrangement, how they look, how the enabling environment looks around those policy instruments that we have, and how is the governance structure and institutional framework, as I said. And then we go to the sectorial side of it. We see how the agriculture plans are matching with the irrigation plans, and then with the water resources ministry or department, and how is the trade-off between energy and agriculture. If I'm expanding my agriculture, then where is the water coming from? And if there's high demand for energy from hydropower, then how I'm managing things on industrial side. So that's how we look at the different sectors and how they are connected with each other and how we do those. We need to, as a government, as a whole of government, make those decisions. So we look at that connection at the sectorial level. And then we go and discuss that, what's the plan for finances? How we finance them? Do we have a plan? Is our national adaptation plan a wish list of projects, or we actually know that how we will be funding and working on that? So that's what the tracker itself is. I will discuss a little bit about the engagement modality of it. It's we start with the government and it ends with the government. We work through the government. Whatever we are saying that applying this tool, it's all by the government themselves. We are sitting next to them just to bring the experience, but they are the one holding it, because eventually once we leave the country, we shouldn't need another tracker to go back there and do the same things that we did. So water resilience and the tracker as a tool should be embedded in the government system so they can carry that for longer. And it's in a phased approach. At the beginning, as a tracker, as a tool, is a diagnostic tool. So that diagnostic phase can finish within 6 to 9 months or a maximum a year, depending on how many documents we are looking, how government is eager to work. So it's more dependent on those facts. But it can conclude within a year, the diagnostic phase. And then we go to the integration side of it, which sometimes we call it the deep dive, or the phase that we look at the gaps, what are the missing points, what are the strengths from the government side to work on that, and then work through the government and with the government to support them. And currently we are on the second phase. Where we are, at the moment we are in Brazil, Egypt, Malawi, Nepal, Morocco, and Panama are on the path. That's from the FCDO funding. But we have 2 more countries, Colombia and Tanzania, from the GIZ funding, which are part of the list. Tracker was in phase 1 of its phase 1, was implemented in 10 countries. They were Costa Rica, Egypt, Malawi, Somalia, Uganda, Rwanda, Palestine, and Panama, plus Brazil. And we have a long list of countries who are interested and who are in the pipeline, that we are looking for more partnerships and more partners to come in, and we can work with them. Just to have a few examples of how countries and the governments and the people look at the tracker, there's a quote from Director of Water in Ministry of Environment and Climate Change. They said, through the water resilience tracker, we are asking the difficult questions in order to seek real solutions. We are using water as a connector of these public policies. So that's a big statement coming from a government director, and they are talking about the tracker in almost every setup. And for Brazil, as the host of the COP30, their Agency of Water, they are having two agendas. One of their agenda is to talk about and present the water resilience tracker at the COP level. So that's a big achievement and big success for the water resilience tracker in this short time. What are the outcomes from phase one there is that we are supporting the creation of their first water nap. They did not have the water nap, and it's now being developed, and our team is working with them. And there are some other documents that are revised. The same happens with Costa Rica. They have revised their national adaptation strategy and national water resources plan. Once they applied the tracker, they saw what are the gaps, and they started redeveloping and redesigning of their plans. So why we are presenting this is to call for support, and I would say that we need, I was looking at that poll, and I saw there are 16 NGOs, 7 governments. We need all of us, businesses, NGOs, government. If the countries that I listed, we are there. If you want to join us on those countries, please, we are open to that partnership. We want that to be a successful model in these countries so we can scale it up to others, replicate it in other countries. So please join our team in those countries. Or you want us to go based on your government kind of interest or your organization interest, want us to go to a new geography, please let us know. With your resources, our expertise, and our partnerships, we can go to new geographies. And if you have expertise, and this tracker as a tool is always evolving. We revise our questionnaire, we revise our guidance documents, and we need those supports still to be up to date with the things that we are doing. So that's also most welcome. And the last thing would be political support. With the governments that we work, we have really great connections. But if you know more than us in a country, and the countries especially that we are working, we would be happy to connect with your teams, with your connection, the government and the political sphere. So I think that's all. Thank you so much. I'm not taking any questions.
Thank you, Idris. It's really great to hear the impact that the water tracker is making in a short span of time, particularly the role of embedding it into governments. I think local ownership is very key to achieving impactful change in the long term, so it's nice to hear that. I'm now going to hand over to Joe Ray, who's head of water at the CDP and Fair Water Footprints. Joe leads the water security team at CDP and brings a lot of experience on international climate, water policy, and governance. Joe.
Thank you, Darshini. Good morning, everybody. How are we feeling? It's very dark in this room, isn't it? No dozing off at the back. Let me see if this clicker is working. Yeah, great. So, as Darshini said, my name's Joe. I head up CDP's water team. Let's just start with a little bit of framing. So, we're talking about a just transition for water security. That can only happen if we engage business and finance in the conversation. So, we often hear reference to the private sector in development spaces. Yeah, I see the lights are coming on a little bit. Thank you. But in practice, different private sector actors have very different incentives and constraints. They operate in different playing fields. So I thought it'd be useful to just break this down a little bit. And the premise here is pretty simple. Business and finance can't be bystanders. If we want any kind of transition, let alone a just transition, business and finance need to be part of the conversation. They need to be brought along with us because they are both the obstacles and the enablers of the water security and the water resilience that we're trying to reach. No water strategy, no business strategy. I'm being provocative here. There are businesses in the room who I'm sure would prickle when they read this. Not all businesses follow the same model. Not all sectors are comparable. That's well understood, but this is really just a bit of a provocation. And the idea is to underline the fact that real economy companies are on the front lines of the water crisis, both in terms of their footprint and in terms of their risk exposure. Now, in 2024, companies reported to CDP that they're exposed to an aggregate $339 billion worth of water-related risks. That includes scarcity, flooding, pollution, all the big risks that we're so familiar with here in this space, but also regulatory risks, reputational risks. Think about loss of license to operate because of community oppositions to unsustainable water practices at a company factory in a stressed watershed somewhere. And supply chain risks. And of course, this program is really about bringing the supply chain into the conversation, helping businesses understand and address that footprint. Now, that $339 billion figure is huge, enormous abstract numbers we're talking about, but that's actually just the self-reported data from the 8,500 companies that report on water through CDP. Many companies don't disclose at all. Some of those 8,500 will probably have underestimated their water risks. So ultimately, this real number, if we can imagine there is a figure that out there somewhere, probably an unknowable figure, is likely to be much greater than $339 billion. And what's also important to keep in mind here is that 30% of companies reporting through CDP haven't mapped their supply chain. And we know that upstream supply chain risk is one of the areas, as the Fair Water Footprint research tells us, that companies are most exposed. So these numbers may sound enormous and abstract, and they are, but they're an underestimate as well. Now, flip side of that is cost of mitigation. How on earth do you begin to mitigate that level of economic impact and risk? And again, the self-reported cost here of mitigation is $58 billion. So in other words, the cost of inaction is 6 times higher than the cost of action. But risk is only half the picture, as we know. Companies also identified $1.4 trillion in water-related opportunities at a realization cost, an investment cost of $86.7 billion. And that spans resource efficiency. Of course, there are always new efficiencies to be found in water resource use, but as all of us in this room know, that's not enough. New products and services, new low water footprint product development, access to new markets, and crucially, increased business resilience. And what the data also tells us is that companies which fail to measure their water dependencies and impacts are those that are exposed to risks, but also missing out on opportunities. Now, I work for CDP, formerly known as the Carbon Disclosure Project. Disclosure is what we do. We acknowledge disclosure is only one piece to a much bigger puzzle, but I do want to just illustrate how closely disclosure is associated with real change. So an independent evaluation was done earlier this year with the support of SDC, who are here with us in the room, that compared companies which had disclosed consistently over a period of time, a decade or so, with companies that had disclosed inconsistently. Because, of course, we didn't have the data to compare consistent disclosures with non-disclosures, if only that were the case. And what it found is that consistent disclosures achieved water withdrawal reductions of 74% over the study period, compared to volatile withdrawal reduction patterns amongst inconsistent disclosures. And that total volume saved is equivalent to the entire textile industry's annual water use. So there's a very clear association here between what you measure and what you manage, and the opportunities associated with risk mitigation and seizing the opportunities thereof. Now, most companies that disclose through CDP are large. They're often multinational companies. They have dedicated sustainability reporting teams, and we send them a very lengthy questionnaire every year, and they fill out data point after data point. But supply chains are often made up of much smaller companies, as we know, and very often the footprint of a large multinational is in its supply chain. But that supply chain is composed of small companies, of SMEs. So with the support of the JTWS program, CDP is working on strengthening our water disclosure for SMEs, for small and medium enterprises, through a dedicated simplified SME questionnaire that's aligned with and complementary to our main corporate questionnaire. And the idea is that this will help smaller companies who are being requested to provide data to the larger companies who disclose through our platform to understand this is what they need to disclose, these are the data points that are important, this is how you can collect them. And the idea is to bring those smaller companies along the journey towards a more resilient and more water secure future that we're all working towards. Now, we talked about the real economy. One step removed from the real economy, but still absolutely essential to it, is finance. And finance, I mean, you can describe it as the water, the lubricant, the enabler of the real economy. It's what allows economic activity to happen, as we know. So without aligning capital flows with water security, we can forget about any kind of meaningful transition, because the financial incentives for businesses to change their practices, improve their business behavior, make their supply chains more resilient, those incentives just won't be in place unless we can get the financing in place. So just a quick snapshot of where we are. We have a dedicated financial sector module within the CDP questionnaire in which we ask financial institutions, what's your risk exposure as investors, as portfolio holders? What's the level of risk exposure? What are the opportunities? What is the impact of your portfolio on water security? 22% of FIs already measure their portfolio's water impacts. 32% don't yet measure, but they plan to within the next 2 years. And that means 46%, just under half, are still investing in the dark when it comes to water. And remember, again, this is only the financial institutions that disclose to CDP on water. So as a percentage of the total assets under management globally in the financial sector, this is a very small proportion. So what we have are huge blind spots in capital allocation globally, with billions of dollars flowing into activities that are exposed to water risks, and in many cases making water issues worse. I'm told I have 1 minute. Okay, thank you, Henning. So what can financial institutions do? Well, there are many different types of FIs. We won't go through all of them here, but just a few. Pension funds, huge role to play. They manage trillions of dollars. They've got a long-term investment horizon, and they increasingly understand that long-term water stress undermines portfolio value. So as the biggest shareholders in publicly traded companies, we increasingly see pension funds applying pressure to companies to improve their water stewardship practices. Credit rating agencies, they shape the cost of capital. Think about when one of the big three credit rating agencies downgrades sovereign debt, and there's a political uproar because suddenly the cost of borrowing for whichever country has been downgraded becomes more expensive. Well, credit rating agencies can do the very same thing, provided they have the right data on water risk, and that again can influence corporate behavior. And then finally, commercial banks can begin integrating water risk into lending criteria. We're already seeing some front runners establishing things like blue bonds, sustainability-linked loans, and other new and novel types of finance. So the bottom line here is that finance without water insight, without water data, is capital at risk. But with the right insight, finance can become the catalyst for water security. And I promise I'm wrapping up here, Henning, because the JTWS program is an opportunity for financial institutions, for companies, for civil society actors to get involved. This is not just a program that a few partners are delivering with support of a donor. It is that, but it's also much more. It's a chance for all of those interested organizations in this space to get involved, to make commitments, to join forces, to protect supply chains, to unlock new markets and opportunities, and contribute to a water resilient future. Thank you.
Thanks, Joe. Indeed, what can't be measured can't be managed, but also what can't be disclosed can't be measured or managed. So there you go. Okay, I'm going to introduce our next speaker, which is Ella Lazarte. She's the Chief Executive Officer of the Resilient Water Accelerator. Ella used to lead water finance and private sector teams at USAID prior to joining the RWA.
Thanks, Darshini. And thank you all for coming today. Yeah, it is. Joe, thank you for cueing the lights. Much better. Really excited to be here talking to all of you. And after this shorter portion of the presentations, you will get a chance to engage with us more intimately in the table. So I really encourage you to do that. With the different themes that we've presented. So the Resilient Water Accelerator, what is it? RWA. So I guess Andy, similar origin story, but maybe I'll change it to restaurants and bars in terms of how it started. It's really a group of people who put their heads together and said, we've got a financing issue. Where's the money? I was just in a session yesterday. My colleague Karen was there. Money, money, money. Where is it all coming from? And how do we unlock financing barriers in the sector and unlock trillions of dollars? I mean, Joe just showed some of the numbers. There's trillions of dollars needed for water-related investments, water-related SDG investments. And where will it come from? And so the Resilient Water Accelerator was launched a few years ago under the Sustainable Markets Initiative by formerly Prince Charles, now King Charles. And we've been operating inside WaterAid as a global initiative, exploratory initiative, and now we're a subsidiary. So a few months old subsidiary, nonprofit company working in the space intersection of water, climate, and finance. And so we operate in clearly defined markets, with local decision makers to identify and cultivate deal structures that channel investments toward water security outcomes. And so when I talk about markets, I know people define markets differently, so bear with me here. Supply and value chains, that was just the last, Joe talked at length about that. And we're also working in the municipal market space, so that's for some of you who work in the water and sanitation sector, so that's more municipal water and sanitation services, and also watersheds. None of these are mutually exclusive, but those are the different spaces we work in. I'll focus more in my talk today, just now, on the supply and value chain. And how do we do that? So we are catalyzing private and commercial finance through three things. So we do market intelligence, rigorous analytics, and not just in the beginning, but also throughout our work, and then network mapping and building. It's not just getting people to sit in a room together, but really understanding who are the actors and the different players in the room that we can engage, from suppliers, brands, factories, financial institutions, whether they're DFIs, IFIs, pension funds, investors, and other NGOs, as there are a lot of NGOs here in the room. So it's everyone together. What's that problem that we're trying to solve, and how do we do it together? We don't claim to reach all the water security outcomes just by ourselves. And it really struck me yesterday in this one session I was in, I think it was Alexis from WWF saying, we've got a finance problem and we have to work together to do it. Otherwise, we can't work in one individual transaction. So that's what we're trying to do. So the third piece is really the development of a business case to do that, and investment models. How do we do it so it's not just one-off transactions, but we get a portfolio of projects together, or a program so that we can really tackle this and move the needle and create the transformational change that Andy was talking about. So I won't go through this quite busy slide, but my team developed these guiding parameters. They're really important for us to think about when you drive investments. Oftentimes we say, finance is important, we need to unblock it, but how do you really do it? You need investment drivers, so whether it's through disclosures, really realizing, I was just at a dinner the other night with a few brands who will go unnamed, and some of them said, look, our C-suite are really interested in this, and maybe some of that is through CDP's work and others. They are realizing that water risks are really material risk for the company, and we have to do something about it. So that's very much encouraging, and those are some of the force factors and investment drivers that we're looking at in the supply chain market. And Idris talked a lot about NAPs, national policies, action plans. That's a starting point for us. Do they exist? Making sure that the investments support adaptation, minimize GHGs. And I would say what's really important is financial viability. We can't talk about investments without talking about the revenue streams. Where is it coming from? What's the cost recovery model? So that's very important what we do. And then is it replicable? And so this is just, I'm going to walk through a couple examples very quickly. And Karen has been leading a lot of this work. Raise your hand, Karen. in supply chains in Bangladesh, so definitely ask her for more details. Bangladesh export revenues represent 80%. The garment industry represent 80% of export revenue, so it's very important for them. And the apparel sector consumes a lot of water and generates a lot of pollution. So what are we doing to tackle that? And on top of that, groundwater has been decreasing by up to 3 meters in some areas. So what RWA is doing here is we're supporting a set of companies. So they're tier 2, tier 3, not necessarily the ones that get those large orders, but they're the ones, what Joe was saying, the SMEs, and to access financing so they can invest in water efficiency technologies and effluent management technologies. And in doing that, we're also engaging with the brands and suppliers that I talked about and investors and build partnerships so that we can create trust and do this together. Again, as I was sitting with some of the brands the other night, they were looking at me going, well, are you talking to all the other players? Are you talking to the different NGOs, the governments, WRG 2030 from the World Bank, et cetera? And it's really important for them that they see us as a united front. I happen to have worked actually with WRG 2030, Mike Webster, when I was at the World Bank before, and also my hat as USAID. And so we've been thinking through how do we do this together in Bangladesh and in other places, because it's really important that we have that collective action. And to do collective action, you have to have trust among the actors. So a lot of our work is just engaging with this pool of actors. And then really developing a business case and investment models. So I must say, we are still at the very early stages of the investment models. And the investment model development with these companies. And so there's more to come. That's our focus in 2025. So definitely as part of our call to action, happy to hear more if you've been engaging in this space, what examples you might have, so that we can learn from you and vice versa. And I see that I have a minute. Just quickly, very quickly here now, for our work in Lagos, this is the municipal market space. We've been working on developing an investable set of investable projects. We were asked by the government to help them with PPPs. The problem with, the challenge with this is to have PPPs enabled, you need enabling conditions like governance, regulations, cost-reflective tariffs, et cetera. Where are you going to get the money? Back to what I was talking about financial viability. So a lot of our work in Lagos is to work with the Lagos Water We set up the Lagos Water Partnership to get investors, government, stakeholders, and civil society to work together to look at unblocking some of these issues and tackle the foundational issues in Lagos. We've been working on pre-feasibility, but honestly, the focus has really been to get the actors on the table, do some market intelligence and analysis to see what are the issues, what does the water market look like? We don't have it out for publishing yet, but it's over $1 billion spent annually by households, and yet Lagos Water serves 1, and in some cases 5, 10%, whatever number it is, it's not a lot of the households in Lagos. And so it's definitely an untapped water market. There's an opportunity, but you need to unlock those investments. And so that's what RWA has been working in more on the partnerships and enabling environment end, hopefully to then get to some private investments down the line once we tackle some of those foundational issues. So I will stop there, as I know you're going to say 0 minute. But looking forward to our discussion and our table. Thank you.
Thanks, Ella. Very exciting work that the RWA is doing, and really nice to see examples from Bangladesh and Lagos. Okay, I'm going to hand over now to Lexi Parfit, who's the Director of Public and Policy Engagement at Water Witness and part of the Fair Water Footprints program. Lexi leads advocacy and communications at Water Witness and has over 20 years of experience with public engagements.
Lovely, thank you. Hi, everybody. I am your final speaker before we dive into the group work. So it's my privilege to be in front of you this morning. I work for Water Witness. We are part of the Fair Water Footprints initiative. Our goal is about ensuring sustainable water use becomes the global business norm, transforming how water is used in global supply chains. However, I'm not a water expert. I have the privilege to be in front of all of you. I'll be in a room full of water experts. But for the next sort of loosely 10 minutes or so, I'm going to speak about audience engagement and conversion, which is really just another word for human connection. I heard Serene Malik earlier today when she was asked actually what is the core for transforming water security, and her response was 2 words: consumer awareness. So that's really the sense and the scene of where we're coming from with this strand of our work. If we want to talk about human connection, when the water that is used to produce our food, our clothes, our laptops, our tech is so often invisible to the end consumer, how do we make it visible? How do we build that connection? Water, though, is in our daily rituals. It's our morning cup of tea or our evening bath. It's in our holy religious celebrations the world over. It's the simple joy of paddling your feet on a hot day. How do we connect to that? Well, if you ask the poets, water is the soul of the earth. If you ask the philosophers, they might say, if there's magic on this planet, it's contained in water. If you ask the great British public, they might say, it's always grey and rainy, it is miserable, it's inconvenient, we don't love it. But we actually did ask the British public. Well, Water Witness commissioned a top polling company, YouGov, to ask the British public, more than 2,000 UK adults across various demographics, about how much they actually knew about water use in global supply chains. And what we found was that more than half said, nah, we don't really know anything about that. Less than 20% of people said that they were aware of how water is used to grow and produce the goods that we consume every day, from fruit and veg to mobile phones. However, once they understood what a fair water footprint was, 93% of people said they were very concerned about unfair water footprints in supply chains. So just working from that UK public context alone, we know there's low awareness of unsustainable and unfair water use in supply chains. But once the awareness is there, there are extremely high concern rates across demographics about water pollution, about unsustainable withdrawals, nature degradation, climate vulnerability, and lack of wash access in the production of our daily goods. Those goods that we find in our supermarkets' shelves, in our wardrobes, we welcome them into our lives and into our homes. The challenge is, well, how do we foster that and harness that connection? Convert that concern into action, into demand, creating an enabling environment where change is irresistible. We know citizens and civil society are the drivers of change. So what do we actually need to do? Well, in a world where the impacts of unfair water footprints on communities and ecosystems is often invisible, we build that awareness. We make it motivating. So we do that in a way that doesn't place blame on the consumer or suggest that the solution is individual behaviour change. Instead, we look to mobilise a positive movement for system change. In a world where civic space is being closed down, where speaking out can get you arrested or worse, where funding for investigation work, evidence gathering is scarce, we invest in civil society and in citizens' voices. And a world where the media is so overwhelmed with international news stories, while at the same time investigative newsrooms are being pared right back, commissioning stories is almost impossible. We grow public awareness and we use that media, we use that reputational risk lever for companies and governments to do the right thing on water. So I'm just going to share how we're doing that and how you, if you're interested, can also do that with us. So, first of all, Water Witness is one of the lead partners of the Fair Water Footprints Initiative. We're going to work with a specialist communications agency called Don't Panic to launch a major public engagement campaign in late 2025. We're working with this award-winning agency. You can see some of those that they've worked with already. We're going to reach millions of people in the UK and beyond with an unignorable media, PR and digital campaign, helping to make embedded water visible, again, without blaming the consumer, but focusing on the fact that the brands that we know and love, that we welcome into our homes, can and must do better on water footprints. We're designing the campaign primarily for our UK audience, but in a way that can be adapted and scaled and used in other markets globally. Maybe that's your market. In fact, going back to our YouGov survey, we know that the concern is there. We also know that people are willing to take action. So part of the campaign is about activating that. It'll be coming late 2025. So if your organisation could make use of some of those materials, want to get involved in it, please see me. Secondly, we're investing in representation and inclusion and working with civil society partners from across the global south, both as signatories to the Glasgow Declaration, but also in distinct partnerships as part of our youth engagement strategy. And one particular example of that is our work with the global youth climate justice movement, the Earth Guardians. So last year, Water Witness collaborated with the Earth Guardians team in Côte d'Ivoire to research water footprints in the cocoa supply chains. Côte d'Ivoire is a source of about 40% of the entire world's cocoa. All major chocolate brands source there. Some have been doing so for almost half a century. However, what we find is that climate vulnerability is acute. Access to wash across all production zones is unacceptably low. But through working with the youth movement, working in partnership, we've managed to bring and demonstrating the evidence that we have and the locally led solutions that are being called for, we've been able to bring the world's biggest commodity trader to the table, the world's most recognised standard system, fair trade, and about 90 chocolate brands, all to discuss how to manage water risks in their supply chain for a future where climate resilience is invested in and wash access skyrockets. And thirdly, more than ever, we need citizens and civil society engaging in processes, holding governments at all levels, corporates and private sector to account for sustainable water use in supply chains. That means resourcing, properly resourcing and supporting citizens' voices via civil society networks to evidence the impacts of unfair and unsustainable water use and to advocate for their water rights and to drive forward collective action from all stakeholders. So under the Fair Water Footprints Initiative, with support from Swedish Postcode Lottery Foundation, SDC, FCDO, we've set up a new facility, a facility that was co-designed by more than 30 water experts from across 13 African nations. And the result, the Fair Water Action Fund, provides small grants, tailored technical support and legal advice to investigative journalists, researchers and civil society organisations in the Global South who are dedicated to improving water governance, accountability on human rights, water and climate risks. We have 7 grantees already working from community mobilisation in South Africa through to impacts of mining in Zimbabwe to supporting the sustainability of the fresh fruit and veg sectors in Morocco and Peru. That was our first round of funding. For our second round of funding, we have received 800 grant applications from 90 countries. The demand is unbelievably high and support is needed. If you could benefit from the fund or if you could provide funding or technical support, again, please see me. If I may, very quickly, I'll wrap up. This all matters, knowing and claiming your water rights, having space to advocate for solutions at all levels, from local planning meetings to UN to fora like Stockholm World Water Week. Water sustainability in global supply chains is too important to be left to governments and private sector alone. Civil society is crucial. So the poets and philosophers can debate whether water is soul or magic or something else. For all of us, the bottom line is that water is the life force of our communities, our ecosystems, and our economies. So let's get informed, inspired, mobilise for change. as I say, if you're a civil society organisation and you see value for your work in making use of our campaign materials to mobilise your audiences, or you could apply to the Fair Water Action Fund for financial and technical support for your research and accountability work, or if you think that engagement with youth could be just what you need, get in touch with us, please. It's not magic, it's hard work, but it's going to be irresistible. Thank you.
Thank you, Lexi. Very powerful, particularly listening to the collective action that has that's been inspired by the Fair Water Footprint. I'm going to, I think missed a couple of slides there. All right, just putting up our wonderful website here that everyone can go to if you need any information about any of these initiatives. We will now move on to the group exercise. I'll quickly introduce it. We'll have 4 groups, and you'll have a chance in each of these groups to talk through one of the sort of actors that we've spoken about in the last half an hour. So for those who want to discuss and engage with policymakers and public sector actors, yours is table 1, which is here, I think. It will be facilitated by Martin Schuler, I'm told, from ARUP. There you go, there's Martin. The second one is corporations and financial institutions, which is that the table? No? Oh, there, okay, thank you, that's the table. That will be facilitated by Joe. Put your hand up, Joe. Oh, you're already on stage, they know who you are. All right, the third one is going to be investors and project developers, which is table 3 there, facilitated by Ella. And finally, civil society table over there, facilitated by Lexi. Oh, sorry, I'm so confused. It is very dark here and the lights are very bright. But yes, that's going to be there, facilitated by Lexi. Thank you. And we'll come back in 20 minutes. Is that right, Henning? Yeah? All right. We'll come around and put a timer on you all. Thank you.
Competing little centres.
Hi, everyone. I've got a 4-minute warning. All right, everyone, I think time is up. All right. Clap, clap, clap. Let's go. All right, we're going to start reporting back now. So if the facilitators can either do it themselves or pick someone from the table to just quickly summarize. I'm just going to go right to left. So if we can start with that table. Joe, thanks.
In true World Water Week style, we focused on barriers, and we talked a lot about some of the challenges. There's no Scope 3 equivalent, so in the carbon mitigation space, there's established accounting methodologies for decarbonisation of supply chains, and the point was quite rightly made that we don't yet have an equivalent for water. Fair water footprint can perhaps be part of that conversation in terms of driving that forward. There were a lot of other barriers. I don't want to go into them now because they're quite familiar. We did talk about some opportunities. Supply chain finance is an emerging area of opportunity and something that we can explore further. And we also talked about peer-to-peer collaboration amongst professionals who are working at a certain level of sustainability and water stewardship within companies and who are facing the same challenges in terms of getting water onto CFO and C-suite agendas. That was something that emerged as an opportunity that we can convene.
Right. Thank you. Ella?
Following your lead, yes, key barriers as well. We stayed there. No, we got beyond it in some cases. So we had a few different strands of ideas. And so one was really, it was more what's needed to unblock finance and really what RWA can do. So to be able to buy down the costs for the private sector to develop an opportunity, because it's very expensive to do that. So how could RWA work with the public sector and support the public sector to do that? Looking at the legal due diligence, et cetera, creating the conditions for private sector opportunity. We also talked a bit about, there was some talk about there's a lot of contracts. So if you talk about concessions and private sector investments in infrastructure, there's a lot of information, but it's not available publicly. So how can we work together to make that kind of information public so people don't start from scratch? And that's really how you get to scale. And of the importance of the policy level. There's no framework for really for water resilience projects that we talked about in many countries. So how do you create that enabling conditions? And kind of lots of games happening or lots of things happening in the behind the scenes. So how do you help investors navigate in a space?
Okay. I think we're running out of time.
I'll stop there.
Yeah. Thank you. Martin?
Yeah, thank you. Round of applause. I think we're running out of time, but we, on this table, we're looking at sort of policymakers and the public sector. We did look at barriers, but we moved to hope. And hopefully I'll take you on that journey briefly. So, look, we all know what the barriers are, but there was a sort of general feeling of the weakness in the sector, lack of coordination, fragmentation, lack of data and evidence. So if you've been at this conference for more than one day, you'll have heard that everywhere. Yeah? I think moving more positively, there was a sense that maybe we need to change the narrative and the language that we use. And again, if you've been around the sector as long as I have, this won't come as a big surprise, but I think we probably need to work a little bit harder at getting ourselves out of the water bubble and then talking to the other sectors. We were considered weaker than energy, food and ag and other sectors. And the way to turn the dial on that is that we can either go and sulk about it or we can go and talk to them. Hey, look. This is just in time. Thanks, Danny, for that. Yeah, so I think, whoa, okay, I was going to stop now. But then very quickly, we started to talk about where the water resilience tracker could help. And I think the advice, because it was great advice, was actually moving from the national scale, from the NDCs and NAPs, but actually then moving into the basin and connecting. And there was a lot of conversations around the different levels of governance, so the sort of multi-level governance, and they've all got to be talking to each other, and the need for strong political leadership. You know, it kind of starts from there. Once you've got that, you can actually start to make progress. So I think that's something that the Just Transitions programme can do. It can have those conversations and provide the evidence to sort of move the dial. I'm going to leave it there, but there's lots of other things on the board, and can I thank the team, unless there was any points I've missed, but thank you very much.
Thanks, Martin. Lexi, thank you.
Thanks. I'll be very brief. I think we're getting, told very clearly to hurry up. So karaoke, anyone? Very quickly, our group was an amazing mix of perspectives. We were able to talk about kind of citizen engagement work with perspectives from both government, NGO sector, and also from the regulatory side as well, with a number of different perspectives, talking about how do you make citizen engagement genuine, meaningful, truly informed, and then for that to move into action. So we've got a lot of learning sharing that was really helpful. We also had a bit of a discussion about actually the missing private sector. So reflecting on some of the work here about how do we, if we've got engaged NGOs, we've got engaged governments, but how do we bring the private sector in, when oftentimes we're both trying to be the critical friend, and shaping the way forward, but at the same time having to call out bad practice. So yeah, lots of food for thought in there. I'll just do, if I may, a very quick plug to say that if there are a bunch of materials relating to the JTWS programme and the work that was mentioned while we were on stage on the table there in the corner. So please, if any of that is of interest to you and you want to take away a physical copy, please do, or have a look at our website. Thank you. Sorry, the comms person there. Check out our website. Thank you.
And Henning was moderating the session online. So Henning, any quick thoughts?
Yes, hello, yes. I was moderating the people who were online. We had a much broader conversation. We were covering everything. Some similarities came up, but the key 3 points that we were discussing was that a just transition needs to be a needs-driven transition. It should be shaped by the needs and priorities of local communities. We need to have equity and inclusion at the core. A just transition for what security means equitable access, sustainable resource management, and inclusive participation. And then the final point was coordinated roles and learning. So governments, companies, civil society must work together, policy, practice, and accountability to enable fair water systems. Thanks.
Thank you. Thanks very much. We just have a couple of minutes, so I just want to say, a huge thank you. This has all been extremely insightful. There's a lot for us all to take back with us and think about. As Joe said earlier, I think this was very much not all of these initiatives working with the partners, but it really is a call to action to you all to sort of come and support us, tell us what you think we're doing right, what you think we're doing wrong, and we look forward to collaboration. I think one of the most powerful things about the JTWS is the local action and the collective action that it inspires. So we really want to make a difference in the countries that we all work in together. So that's what the future holds. We also are doing some exciting work going forward, potentially on reforming the finance sector, watering finance. So keep an eye out for all of that. And yes, thank you very much. Thank you. And thank you to Henning, who actually did everything behind the scenes.